giant robo!
Crush him yourself.
What?
It's always, giant robo, big fire is attacking, crush them. Giant robo, Starbucks got my order wrong, crush them. Giant robo, the cans in the recycling bin, crush them.
But we're saving the world!
Seems like I'm saving you from having to get up off the couch. And by the way, it hurts when you hang off of my face. Those are sensory organs, not handholds.
But there's a giant meteor heading for Earth!
Oh, looks like you can crush it, but you can't take it, huh? Whatever. I'm off to Voltron's place. We're gonna play cards with Mazinger and Gurren Lagann, and I hope Unit 1 is there, because I'd like to do a little crushing of my own, if you know what I'm saying. Bye! Hope you find pants someday.
Welcome back to the all-new Just Enough Trope podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Mikan Hana.
And I'm another one of your hosts, Caliban.
And we're here to examine all of the tropes in popular media as we bestride the narrow world like a colossus.
Julius Caesar. Nice. How about, oh, it is excellent to have a giant's strength, but it is tyrannous to use it as a giant.
Measure for measure. Here you go. We are but shrubs, no cedars we. No big-boned men framed to the Cyclops size.
Big-boned men. James Corden?
It's Love Slavers Lost. And let's lose this bit right now.
Okay.
Before we begin, it's only fair that we define exactly what a trope is and what we're even trying to do here.
Cupid's butt shaft is too hard for Hercules' club.
I'm not playing anymore.
The play's the thing.
A trope in art or fiction is an element or a plot device or a character type or even a phrase that we tend to see again and again, like a David and Goliath situation.
Oh, Davy.
Your knowledge of bad Christian children's entertainment is truly colossal.
I don't want to talk about it.
Speaking of Goliath and other giants, we are not connected to the Goliath-like website tvtropes.com, but they are a great resource for examining tropes in media. We're more like a plucky David and his sling, small but fierce.
Michelangelo's David is like 17 feet tall. Like, shouldn't the statue be of Goliath? Is this like a Renaissance bit?
Maybe he was working on a 40-feet statue of Goliath, too?
Sorry, Mike. The Medicis aren't going to pay for 40 tons of Tuscan marble.
Where's a turtle going to get that kind of money?
Invent pizza?
Okay, we're talking about giant robots, not turtles in time, so let's get to it.
Cowabunga it is. Robots, now in giant size. Is it a completely Japanese phenomenon? Or invented by the Japanese, popularized by the Japanese, and kept alive by the Japanese? Name an American giant robot. Begin.
Iron Giant.
Yeah.
Transformers?
Japanese.
Did it start as being Japanese?
Well, the toys.
The toys, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's really hard.
Pacific Rim is a Mexican giant robot.
With a lot of Japanese influence.
Wearing its Japanese influence on its sleeve.
Yeah.
Like Japanese peanuts in your Mexican mix.
Right.
It's weird. And this is where you come in and go, oh, it's like the atomic bomb. Yeah, we get it. We get it.
I do think that maybe a lot of that is present here
but there
as well.
is some weird thing where it's like the perfect confluence. And remember, this is not only creativity, but this is also like giving an audience what they want, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's a reason that right now we just get a lot of superhero movies because American and world audiences, but American audiences just enjoy extrajudicial violence.
Apparently we do.
And a long-running soap opera.
Yeah.
But, it's just like, yes, a thing that can flatten a city and is dangerous, but also is piloted or controlled by, it's always a young child.
Seems like it a lot of the time.
And then also, the high technology aspect of it, which the Japanese have always kind of been into. And then the civic-minded aspect. So not only is there a monster clomping around, but there's also like characters, the police and the fire chief. And
Military.
They're like, careful. Yeah. The military. Do we attack? No. Let the robot handle it.
Right.
Let them fight.
Yeah. Is this robot, are they friend or foe? Is this a known entity? Like, I feel like a lot of times.
We don't have time for that in the U.S.
Yeah, I know.
It's like a good guy or not, right?
We got to know.
Can you imagine some kid in like Idaho, this is basically the Iron Giant, right? Some kid in Idaho like finds a giant robot in the ground.
Yeah.
We'd be super pumped about that.
Yeah, right. We would, but I think also like in the Iron Giant, like there are a lot of characters. Well, there's at least
talking about the Iron Giant.
Yeah, I know, but the military guy is like, oh, we gotta shoot it.
We'll talk about it.
I know we will. Was that your Vin Diesel?
We'll talk about it. We will definitely talk about that. I was trying to think back, and, we've talked about how it is at least in the modern sense, the 20th century and beyond, a very Japanese phenomenon.
Yes.
But, like, what's the first giant robot? And robots in general, it's interesting because the word was only coined, about 100 years ago. Although the idea of artificial beings has always been around. And we're going to stick to giant ones.
Right.
Because we can do robots or androids on another show.
Yes, we can.
But we're going to talk about giant ones. And so, like in ancient myth, there's the idea of mechanical men or automatons, even before people had any hope of making something like that. Although clockwork items and things like that have existed for hundreds of years.
That's true.
Certainly in the East. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of Chinese like clockwork animals that were like real things that were supposedly made. Didn't survive till now. During the Renaissance and even before that, in Europe there were clockwork men and clockwork animals and things like that.
There were like wind up dolls and toys in Japan too that were really popular as well. I think there was a lot of stuff like that all over the world. Yeah. During a certain time.
But the first thing that I can think of that would be a giant, would be the myth of Talos.
Okay. Tell me more about the myth of Talos.
Is a Greek myth, which comes mostly from the Argonautica, which is like the story of the Argo. Okay. Which is like the Avengers of Greek mythology, right? All right. The Argo is Jason and Hercules and, all these sort of Greek myths get together and fight Loki. And so got it. One of the things that they have to do is, they're sent to get the Golden Fleece, which is an adventure into itself. Mm-hmm. And on their way back, they have to go to Crete. And Crete is defended by a giant artificial man called Talos. Okay. And he is made of metal. He's like made of bronze or whatever. Supposedly he was made by Hephaestus at the command of Zeus to protect Europa, who was one of Zeus's lovers. And so he's like this giant being. Sometimes he has wings and he is autonomous. Like he can control himself. He's just made of metal, bronze or something like that. And the way that they stop him is he has a nail in his like ankle or his foot. Oh, okay. Because he's got one vein. I don't know how this works, but he's got a closed circulatory system that just runs on one thing. Because obviously a robot needs blood.
Obviously, we know this.
And his blood is ichor, or as the kids today say now because of the internet, ichor. So basically, Jason and the Argonauts figure out that they can Medea is going to distract him, and then they're going to pull this nail out, and then all this ichor, this living, liquid, this quicksilver or whatever it is, pours out of him, and he dies. Okay. He can't control him. So he has no life force anymore. He bleeds to death. Yeah, right. Bleeds to death. Yeah. Okay. And it's a parallel to like the Achilles heel and that sort of thing. Yeah. But this is like an old myth. This is like from like 400 BC. Like it's in the Argonautica, but there are attestations to a similar story or a similar being that go like hundreds of years before that.
Huh. Interesting. Well, I guess I can kind of see it, right? Because if you were alive back then and you believed in this pantheon of gods,
Yeah.
you know, it's just interesting that this idea of like a giant metal being,
Yeah.
you know, was 400 BC. That's just kind of amazing to me.
Well, and it's tied into other stuff too. And I'm not a Hellenistic ancient Mediterranean historian, but like there's this myth, Crete or the kingdom of Minos in myths of that era are interesting because they're like separate. There's this big island, and it's kind of separate from the rest of the Hellenistic world.
Okay.
And so, there was a civilization there, and there's this theory about like how they were kind of wiped out by a natural disaster, one that probably parallels a real life thing, a tsunami, earthquake, volcanic activity, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the myth of Atlantis is sometimes tied into like what happened to Crete. I mean, Crete exists still.
Sure.
There's probably some real life thing that was more of a longer process of degradation in their society. But they've got all this cool stuff. Minos had the bronze bull, and he had the labyrinth, and he had, Talos, the mechanical man. And so it's possible that they were a separate, society. That, there was a society there, we know that, but like had, because of their isolation,
ideas.
they were able to, accumulate wealth, and they had a lot of seafaring trade. And so they were like the Elysium, from the Matt Damon movie. They had, they were like a separate society. And so maybe myths grew up about the kind of technology that they had that turned into something fantastical, like a metal man or something like that. Although Kratos does kill the Colossus of Rhodes in the beginning of God of War 2. And that's a giant robot in the ancient world.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I think they're, Japan in some ways, is okay. Yes, a lot of people came over from China and Korea and that sort of thing. But like, because it is kind of isolated from mainland Asia, they are very different in a lot of ways. And also they were closed for 200 years. So they're also different.
Yeah. But alternately, that meant that they were very backwards technologically.
Yeah, they were.
By choice.
Until
forced to not be that way.
And then they really sped up. So maybe that is part of the fascination with giant robots too. Like,
you think they were like, they got to like the table of the UN or whatever, and they're like, oh, let's see the giant robots. They're like, we don't have any giant robots. What are you talking about? They're just like, oh, we thought you'd have giant robots. We've got giant robots. You don't have giant robots? And it's just like this thing that they've had to keep up. Like this aunt that they've invented.
Right.
And then now you have to like keep talking about the aunt every time. Oh, yeah, aunt's doing fine. What did I say? I had an aunt. It was so stupid.
Now I have to not only make these stories about giant robots, I have to somehow manifest them into the real world.
So these aren't like robots that are, they're not like Asimov robots. They're not like Data. They're not, we're talking about like machines of war, threatening robots.
Sure.
As history goes on, there's, the tale of the Golem.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Which does not get enough play, I don't think.
No. Okay, I'm going to be real honest.
It's racist, I think.
Yeah, okay. Well,
The Golem should be cooler. The Golem, well, we'll talk about it in a second. The Golem only got cool when it got a goy glow up.
Oh, is that right? I don't know that much about. I'm somewhat familiar with the Golem story, but not super familiar.
Oy vey.
I know.
I'm
a bad Jew. I know.
He's protecting the people, traditionally of Prague, right? The Jewry of Prague is getting a lot of static, as often happens in Europe in the Middle Ages. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple different versions of this story. And actually, there's Jacob Geller is a YouTube creator who did a video about the Golem a while ago. And it supposedly comes from a more accurate translation. But basically the idea is that he is a man made from clay.
I was going to say, I thought he was made from clay.
And I think Jacob Geller says in the original story, he is more of a negotiator and he's not a big guy. But it became a parable about strength.
Sure.
And about how the Jews of Prague needed a defender. And so they created, or, a rabbi or Sakidim created like this man of clay and then empowered him through magic. And so he, was a defender of the ghetto of the Jews in Prague. Mm-hmm. And on his forehead was inscribed the word for truth, emet.
Okay.
I don't know why that gives him power. I guess truth sets you free.
Yeah.
And strangles your enemies in dark alleyways. And then once some whatever crisis it was that had been resolved, then there's no more use for the golem. And so they erased the first letter. This would be on the right side, of course, it's because it's Hebrew, of the word. And so that just left met, which was death.
Oh, okay.
And so that's why, and then he stopped working.
Sure.
And so he was brought to life by power or God or whatever, mysticism, but not controlled. He followed orders, but he was still like his own person. But that's a scary kind of thing.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not Jew. And so, I mean, that's I think a robot, if you imagine him as being, he's not 20 feet tall or whatever, but he's, scary and imposing.
Right.
Of course, that gets literally whitewashed and turned into Frankenstein. And don't give me this. I'm not talking about, I know it was a book. Oh, it's just the first, a lady wrote the first song. Yes, you're right. I get it. But that's a very different thing. And Frankenstein wasn't even necessarily a big guy with bolts in his neck in the book. In Mary Shelley's book, his creation, if this is like most novels, especially sci-fi or fantasy novels of the 19th century at that time, it's an epistolary novel, and it is Victor Frankenstein's journals. And he purposefully omits how he did this so nobody else I'm confessing, but I'm not going to put the recipe for napalm in here. I don't want you to make it.
Right.
And so it's not, he just creates a being who, depending on your interpretation, is either very ugly or very beautiful. Mm-hmm. But is not accepted because it's terrifying. I have created life that is not created by God. And so, of course, it's a story of resentment and that creation, trying to take revenge on its creator. That gets turned into Firebird.
Right.
Which, different show again, but if you want to look into why the cinematic Frankenstein is the way he is, we can talk about that. But I think that he is alive, but he is giant, and he is, what is a robot? It is a being created to serve someone else's, pleasure. I can't remember the film, James Whale's film, too well. I don't know if Victor ever talks about, other than just curing death, what he plans to do. Maybe that's part of the problem. He's got to put this guy into a program, get him a job. What's he plan to do with the monster once he creates it?
I don't remember what his plan was. I think it was kind of just like, can I do this? And, oh, yes, I can. Oh, crap, now what? I don't think he was a planner. I don't think Victor Frankenstein was a planner.
I think he was.
And also didn't think about, oh, crap, if it's alive, does it have a soul? And then what? Like, you are essentially creating life, so then aren't you responsible for it?
He's not thinking about this stuff at all, which I would say is, come on, man, what's going on? And then meanwhile, Dr. Pretorius, all of his creations, his homunculi, literally have jobs.
Yeah.
There's a king and a queen and a juggler.
Right. Ballerina.
They come into the world knowing exactly what they're going to do.
Right.
It's
exactly.
perfect. Come on.
Yeah.
Get these people on some social programs for these fleshy robots.
I mean, and then you look at young Frankenstein. He gets part of Victor's brain, right?
He's a song and dance man.
Yeah, and then he's a song and dance man.
He's putting on the Ritz.
He's reading. He loves to learn.
He's hanging out with Gene Hackman.
Yeah, it's all good. So you give him something to do, and then he's not aimless, and he he knows he has a purpose, right? And he can look out for himself if his creator is not looking out for him.
Well, come on, save something for the Frankenstein show. Come on, you got to leave something in the tank there.
That's true.
So let's then shift to, I think, where we were always going to land, which is the East.
Yes.
And specifically Japan and their embrace of this idea of the giant robot, an automaton that is going to perform some kind of action and has some connection to some other character.
Yep.
And we'll talk about the different like versions and breakdowns of this. But let's talk about the origin of at least the Japanese version of this this trope.
Yes.
I think arguably the first would be Tetsujin 28-go.
Okay.
Or Gigantor, as it was known in the West, created by Mitsuteru Yokoyama, who created a bunch of stuff, a prolific creator of things at the time. He also created Sally the Witch.
Sure.
Regarded as one of the first mega popular anime. Tetsujin, though, came out in 1956,
Yes.
first as a manga and then later, of course, as an anime cartoon. Were they even calling it anime back then? I suppose they did.
I probably. That's a good question.
Now we all emulate. I mean, any country can just start taking pictures of drawings and that move, right? But
Yeah.
like now we think of like anime as influencing almost all of animation. Ironically, back then, Japanese animation was inspired by Western animation.
Yes,
And
right.
so their anime was very Western.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, and you see that in the Gigantor cartoons.
Well, and I read somewhere when I was younger that Osamu Tezuka, who is by many thought of as the godfather of anime, he modeled a lot of his characters, well, I guess of manga, but he modeled a lot of his characters after Disney characters, which is why they had giant eyes.
Yeah.
So,
And certainly Yokoyama himself was inspired by Osamu Tezuka, the guy who created Astro Boy.
yes.
And he was himself inspired by Steamboat Willie and
Right.
Disney and E-Works and all that stuff.
I think it's interesting that it's in black and white, but I guess a lot of cartoons around this time were probably not necessarily colorized.
Yeah, but remember, it's photography.
Oh, right.
So you can use whatever paint you want, but if you're only taking black and white pictures of it, it's not going to come across anyway.
That's true.
So he created that. That was pretty popular in the 50s, but was kind of a short run. Then in the 1960s, he created the same thing. He just did
More
it all
or
over
less.
again. Apparently, Toei, and one of these days on our podcast, Sailor Noob, or Sailor Cinema, we will talk about long-running corporations, of which Japanese has like the top 50 companies who have been around for 700 years, 800
Wow.
years. In one case, there's a hotel that's been open for 1,500 years.
Is that right?
It is the oldest business on the planet.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I just got goosebumps. That's wow.
Yeah, but anyway, tune
Okay.
in to some future episode of Sailor Noob for that. But yeah, Toei, this production and entertainment company that produced, do you want to list some stuff?
Sailor Moon,
Sailor
Dragon
Moon,
Ball.
a lot of tokusatsu shows and anime and things like that. Approached him and said, "Hey, make another one of those."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Okay, same thing work?" They're like, "Sure, why not?" So he created Giant Robo
Yes.
in 1967, which became very popular. Was a manga anime, became a live action show.
Yes.
Which itself came over to the West, and I was not old enough to watch this, but apparently ran, Saturday mornings in America as Johnny Sacco and his flying robot. Heavily edited,
Of course.
and what do you call it? Localized.
Yes.
Which
And
was
dubbed, I'm sure.
what you'd think of as this giant robot who, and we'll talk about Gigantor later, but for now we'll talk about Giant Robo. He's the giant pharaoh robot.
Yes.
For some reason, he's got a King Tut head.
Yep.
Just like, let the creative juices flow.
Yep. This giant robot is Egyptian inspired.
This means
for some
something.
reason.
Don't think about it. Don't think about it too long.
Were they just like looking at the Sphinx and they were like, yes, that.
I guess.
Except like no cat body parts.
I suppose. I guess so.
I don't know.
And they probably had some input into it. I think that he was obviously dipping into his previous experience and writing what he knew. Mm-hmm. But he was encouraged by Toei to create this. And he basically took a note from a guy named Yoshinori Watanabe, who was a longtime producer at Toei, who said, do something that, and this is where that the commercial affects the creative and vice versa. Mm-hmm. He said, we've got this thing, Ultraman.
Yes.
That had debuted in the mid-'60s.
Yeah.
People can't get enough of it.
Tokusatsu.
Do something like that. Mm-hmm. Also, we have this other property that came out in 1966 called Daimajin.
Okay.
Or Big Devil.
Sure.
And I have not seen these films. I watched a trailer for these films. There's a trilogy of films, the Daimajin trilogy. I really want to watch these really bad because they look awesome.
Are they tokusatsu as well?
Kind of. They are set like in the, well, at least the first one is set in the Sengoku period, the 15th, 16th century.
Okay.
And it is, this town is
so the
plagued...
Warring States period?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Samurai stuff.
Yep.
This town is plagued by bandits and they're killing everybody and trying to get them to renounce, Shintoism and the gods and everything.
Sure.
And there is this giant statue that's carved into the mountain that has this religious significance. And they're like, screw you guys, we're going to deface your statue. And they pound like this giant nail into the face of the statue to hurt it. And so they call on the powers of, the Kami-sama to help them. And it animates this statue.
Okay.
So it is like 400 feet tall.
Okay.
And it becomes a Godzilla movie where instead of being like in Tokyo, they're in like old-timey Japan.
Sure.
And so there are human characters running around trying to do stuff while this giant thing comes in and destroys the bad guys, but he's also destroying the town as well, and he becomes this thing that we should not have awoken.
What have we done?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So Yokoyama said, oh, that sounds good. Okay, take that. Little Ultraman.
Yep.
Because I don't know if you know this, but a lot of things in Giant Robo are from space.
Yep.
And then also King Tut, little King Tut in there.
Yeah.
And we got it.
We got it.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of giant robot stuff where it's like alien related or it's from space, I feel like part of that comes from this is a giant robot, we don't know what it is. Yeah. This is representing something we don't quite understand and it's scary. Is it here to help us? Is it here to smash us?
Yes. I think I'm going to go out on a limb here.
Yeah.
That if Truman hadn't said, yeah, let's drop the bomb. There are people telling him that he should. Uh-huh. There were also people telling him that he doesn't need to.
Yep.
And he's decided to do it.
Mm-hmm.
We would have still won the war.
Yep.
Because at that point we had won the war.
Mm-hmm.
God knows what would happen to the Cold War. I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah. Another story.
I think that Japan would have turned out pretty much the same.
Really?
Yes, obviously the bomb, big deal. But there's something culturally for them where they're asking that question a lot. Should we have done this? Mm-hmm. What have we awoken here? I don't know if we would have got specifically Godzilla, but I think that we would have gotten a lot of the same, assuming that they, were sort of pulled into the 20th century and westernized the way that they were. I think we would have got a lot of the same stuff.
Okay. Interesting. I wonder, because I wonder how it would have happened if things had shaken out differently, like how they would interact with other world powers like differently, and like would they still have an army? Yes. You think so?
No, actually, is the answer to the question. They do have an army now.
They do.
It's called the
right.
Self-Defense Force.
Yes.
I think it all would have been the same. They just would have two cities that still exist.
They exist now. They had to rebuild them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. There's a lot of scar tissue there for sure. Okay.
So Giant Robo was very popular in the 60s and has continued to kind of remain popular. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but Giant Robo returned in the 90s with a series of OVAs.
Yes.
And then there was another anime series in like the 2000s. But, you know, it's one of those like emeritus kind of brands that they kind of keep bringing back every once in a while. Although I don't know if anybody's really clamoring for a new Giant Robo.
They can come up with interesting takes on it, though, I think. You know?
Yeah, there's plenty of other examples, and there are plenty of other. We've talked mainly about like a giant robot that does or doesn't listen to your commands.
Yes.
It's probably only fair that we talk about giant robots that you get inside and control.
Yes.
Probably the earliest I can think of, again from the sort of Japanese tradition, would be something like Giant Machine, which was a manga early on. Later on, there was a Getter Robo, and these are like Voltron-esque situations where
we come together and
gets
form
into a vehicle or a robot that then transforms and comes together into a more giant thing.
Like Power Rangers.
That would lead to Voltron. That would lead to Power Rangers. And things of that ilk.
Okay. All right.
There's Gundam, of course. You can never leave out Gundam.
You can never leave out Gundam.
They're giant robots.
They're giant robots
They're
that you
piloted.
pilot. I mean, do you think all giant robots that you pilot are all of them considered to be mechas?
Yeah, that would be
Do
a
you
mecha.
think? Okay.
I think that's what sets a mecha apart from a giant or a super robot.
It's a vehicle.
I don't think you would
Kind
be
of.
thrown out if you called like Giant Robo or Mazinger Z by going to Guy. Mm-hmm. That's Guy gets in the thing, it goes into the thing.
Right.
But at the same time, Mazinger Z seems to have a sort of personality on his own.
Right. So that's a little different.
But that, like you could call Giant Robo a mecha, even though nobody really pilots him.
No.
A little kid tells him what to do.
And holds onto the side of his face.
Yeah, why is there's always a little kid? What's up with the little kid?
I would like to talk about that. I know we're going to. I'm not 100% sure. Like, I feel like maybe it's like...
Yokoyama wanted a little kid there.
Yeah, well, but like maybe part of it is we've got this big, giant metal robot, which is sometimes completely out of this world, but just seems very hard to relate to and is this weird other earthly thing. So then we need another character there who is relating to it that audiences can connect to. So maybe the target audience is kids, so they're like, so a little kid. You know, I'm not sure why a little kid specifically, or if it's something like a little kid is not jaded by the world, so can believe that a giant
in the
robot...
inherent goodness of it. It's the Gamera situation.
Yes,
Where little Timmy's like, no, Gamera's our friend.
Exactly.
I don't know, this big turtle, shoot him. No, Gamera will help us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's similar to that. Yeah.
All right, well, that was easy. Is that explain?
We figured it out.
Does that explain Spike then in the Transformers? Why do they need Spike?
Who is Spike in the Transformers?
He's Shia LaBeouf. He's he's the human character who's like
I guess
the audience surrogate.
Because, they just see giant robots and they want to shoot and kill them and
they're in
attack
disguise.
them. Yeah, well, that's true. They
Nobody
are
knows
in
about 'em.
disguise. That's true. But like when people find out about them, it's trouble. So
I have two exceptions.
yes.
You've got Astro Boy, where the little kid,
Yes.
is the robot.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Which, and like Mega Man and all the things that were birthed out of that. And then Gunbuster, where the little kid is piloting the robot.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I guess like if you look at something like Macross, Rick Hunter's, he's a teenager. He's like,
right.
I gotta pilot this robot the best.
Or even
I gotta impress Roy.
or Evangelion where they have to be 14.
I'm not even getting to the deconstructions yet.
Oh, sorry, I'm
We're
jumping
not
ahead.
even there yet.
I'm jumping ahead.
But we might as well go there now. Yes, of course, later anime have built on this from Gunbuster to Diebuster.
Yeah. Ooh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
And from Robotech to Evangelion, a show about how like it would be terrible for this to happen.
Yeah.
The solution would be worse than the problem. Now you've got, and Godzilla fans have known this for years. Now you've got two giant things destroying a city.
Yeah.
And then once the good guy is done, eating, I hope that he got full from eating the bad guy because he's going to be looking to eat more stuff. Mm-hmm. And what it would be like to have, thank God they're 14, but to have a child have to be involved in this in some way.
But they're still so young.
If to run alongside of it, hang off of its face, or put its immortal soul in peril by having to pilot the thing itself.
I think of myself when I was 14, there is no frickin' way I could deal with having that much responsibility of piloting a giant robot, to save Japan, basically. Like, I also wonder with Ava, like why the angels only attack Japan. There's something about Japan that is just super delicious that they want to keep attacking it. And
super delicious fortress.
Yeah, there you go.
SDF-1.
Yeah. But anyways.
I don't know, because it's made in Japan, it's set in Japan.
Yeah, you're right.
And plus, like, I respect the fact that, America will set a movie in Japan and shoot there for 2 weeks and talk to no experts while they're there.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe there's this happens sometimes in Japanese movies. I don't know. But usually Japan's like, look, we're trying to tell a story about our society.
Right.
It's that introspection again. It's, should we have done this?
Right.
Are we doing the right thing? And so they're going to set it in Japan because they want it to be a comment about Japan.
And Japanese
instead
society.
of just going to like, I'm here in America getting cheeseburgers.
Right. Yeah. No, that's true.
Pacific Rim.
Yes.
That we mentioned before is... it's a cartoon.
It is.
It's what we're talking about, but it is self-consciously an homage to what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure how well it is an example of what we're talking about.
Well, I mean, it is, but it's like
Let's
with
mash
all of
kaiju
the knowledge
and a super robot thing together.
With all the knowledge that we have and all the cultural impacts that we know, let's have two people pilot giant robots, and then also there's kaiju. So you're just smashing the giant toys into each other. So that's what's happening there.
I have made it clear in previous episodes of this series that I am not the biggest fan of Guillermo del Toro, but I will give him that everything has a reason. He does things for a reason.
Yes.
Why two people? And don't go beyond it's about human connection and working together. No, I understand. And I know he wasn't really involved much in the second movie, but they just dropped that in the second movie, don't they?
Do they?
Yeah, it's just
I don't think I've seen the
Finn
second
from
one.
Star Wars is just going to get in his thing and he's going to roll. I don't think they do the paired pilots thing.
I think it was about, I'm just guessing, but I think it was about cooperation, because it was like a lot of like, well, especially with the main characters, they weren't getting along, and and then you have to coordinate your robot, and you have to
the X-Men,
step.
The X-Men are about cooperation.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they're a bunch of Siamese twins.
I know.
Come on.
Okay, to be
Come on,
fair,
two-head, help me.
To be fair, I don't think that it was necessary, but they wanted, I guess they wanted more human interaction inside of the robots.
Just wanted more characters?
Maybe.
We can only afford to animate like 3 robots, but we want more people talking.
Maybe
and
that's
more
what it
conflict,
was.
And so we've got, Australian guys team up. We've got Japanese people team up.
Mm-hmm. Because like you could have just, I mean, this happens in like Gundam and Evangelion and a lot of other like mecha
in a lot of stuff.
In
a lot of stuff,
you have them talk to each other.
Right, and the story would start with character's backstory is that he lost his loved one, his brother or something, and he feels that ache throughout the story.
Right.
But in this, it is made text instead of subtext or just emotional text because he co-piloted with his brother. And so now he is worth less than some of the other pilots because he needs to form a connection with somebody. Look, I know. Look, I'm explaining it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
I'm just explaining what it is.
You are.
And then he finds Rinko Kikuchi, who he also is attracted to, even though they never kiss and have no chemistry. And I don't know if that was a choice on the part of the filmmakers or if they did a kissing scene and went, oh, they do not kiss well. Cut that out. But anyway, she herself is outcast as a performer. I think she's doing better now. Japanese people don't like Rinko Kikuchi. And they find each other. I understand.
Right.
All I'm saying is it's kind of lame. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and I agree with you. Like, I think
it's weird to make it so explicit when most other movies are like, no, you get it.
But I think that is maybe because it's not only did he lose his brother,
now you're explaining it.
Yeah, I know, but it's like every time he gets into the robot, he was reminded of his brother and like, can he do this or not? And can he connect to other
Tom
people
Cruise
or not?
feels that way about Goose when he climbs into his Tomcat.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that he has to share a seat with somebody. Well, I mean, it literally does because there's a guy.
There's a
radar
guy
in the
him.
back.
Yeah.
But, okay, you know what? No. In Top Gun Maverick, that does come in. Top Gun Maverick, co-written by Guillermo del Toro, because the son of
Is it really?
No, I'm just saying. Because in the end of the film, he has to climb into the Tomcat again with the son of the guy that he's mourning.
Yes.
And then put his life on the line and work together with him.
Yes.
Oh my God.
In order for them both to
That's
survive.
what this show is for.
Yeah.
Top Gun 2 is Pacific Rim 0.
Yeah. Wow.
Put it on a shirt. We got it.
Kind of amazing. Yeah. So we're going to do something a little different for our feature this week because we've consumed a lot of giant robot media in preparation for this. Maybe you could say a colossal amount of giant robot media.
Although we didn't watch Colossal.
No, we did not.
Anne Hathaway.
But anyways, Cal, can you lay out our approach for this?
Well, we have watched a lot. And as we've talked about, when you say giant robot, you have to be specific about the scenario that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to just do a little kid and a big robot, Is your robot sentient? Do you pilot it? Does it transform? Mm-hmm. So we have broken the giant robot genre down into a couple of different categories, 5 categories that together form into one episode of this podcast. And we're going to talk about an example from all of them, or I don't know, just a couple examples of things that we've talked about.
Sure.
So the first category is you pilot it.
Yes.
It's got a pilot.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that we've watched a couple things, but something that we've seen recently that we could talk about that's, a new anime.
Yeah.
Is The Witch from Mercury.
Yes, which is a Gundam.
The new Gundam show.
Yeah.
One of the new Gundam shows.
Yes, right. There's so many Gundam shows.
Yeah, which we watched the first episode of.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to break down? And you don't have to get any of the names right. I know it's all technical, political stuff, but just give us the broad brush of what it is. So
essentially, they're I can't remember what the situation is exactly, but it's in space. It's in space.
Sure is.
And I can't remember if it's the United States. There's a government somewhere else. There's on another planet or whatever.
Yeah.
And this company has on this. Is it its own planet? I'm getting bogged down in the weeds.
It's like a habitat. It's like an asteroid.
Yeah, an asteroid. They're there. Everybody who lives there essentially works for this company in some capacity, and they are working on these giant robots. Do they call them Gundams? I can't remember what they call them.
So in the world, this sucks. In the world of Gundam, there are, I think there are giant robots.
Yeah.
That's like the main way. There are spaceships and fighter jets and battleships, But another thing that militaries use is giant robots.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't think that all giant robots are Gundams. Gundam is a
Right.
giant robot, but not all Gundams are giant robots. And again, remember, there are like 12 different universes and timelines in Gundam.
Yep.
But in
Yep.
this one specifically,
Mm-hmm.
there are giant robots, but the really good ones are in a new class, and that's like called Gundams.
Okay.
Because the bad guys want to get rid of Gundams, but they
Yes.
also have giant robots.
Yes, which may or may not be Gundams. I don't think they are, but yeah, like you just said.
Yeah.
But they have giant robots. And so they're coming to, not only do they want to stop this program, they're coming to like basically kill everybody there.
Because our heroes,
They're going to erase
or
it.
at least our protagonists, are, working on this special Gundam.
Yes.
And the thing about it, and what is a good thing to hit for like you piloting a giant robot, is they employ a man-machine interface.
Yeah, you have to kind of like, it kind of reminds me of Evangelion a little bit, because like you have to kind of connect with the robot, on some certain level.
This
and,
isn't
like,
just being like, because I think a lot of Gundams in the world of Gundam, and this is like one of the first Gundam shows I've ever watched, although I have a couple others that I'm going to check out. Yeah, like
You just pilot
you're
like a
not just
machine.
hitting keys and pulling levers inside the robot. Like it's connected to your mind, and so it's sort of following like your thoughts and stuff like that.
Yes, and moves with your commands, like through your thoughts.
And as
that
we
sort of
see
thing.
in the story, it's a very effective way to fight.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the reasons that it would be desirable for a military. And the people who make it like know that, but there's a faction in the government
Yes.
who has their own political reasons,
Mm-hmm.
but the outward reason that they're giving to the press is that it's a dangerous technology.
Yes.
And they're not wrong, because we see our
it is
heroes
dangerous.
use this technology in defense of their habitat and their home.
Yes.
And it's physically damaging to them. Like as the deeper they get in connection with their robot, like it begins to like hurt their bodies.
Yes. It's bad. And so like
And so the bad guys say, we're trying to stop this because this is a bad technology. Really, they just want political and military supremacy. They don't
Right.
want anybody who isn't connected to them. Because
They don't want any
Asteroid is like a
rivals.
startup company. They're like, I was going to say Tesla. Oh my God.
stop it.
But they're kind of making their own thing, and they don't want anybody to make their own Gundams. Like they want to have control over it.
yeah, they want to be the only ones who have giant robots, essentially.
So so it brings up this question, which we talked about before, which is like, what is we've made this technology. Now what?
Mm-hmm.
Can it be used ethically? Is it okay if the good guys use it, even though it's got bad
Right.
implications, or should nobody use it?
Right.
Or should nobody be able to tell us what we can and can't do?
Should we have never done this in the first place? We have done it.
Yeah.
Now what? Do we shut it all down? Shut
Mr.
it down?
Truman, Mr.
Right.
President.
Right, exactly. But yeah, so like the main part of we meet this pilot. She's trying to connect to the Gundam, and it's just the tests. She's not doing super great. She's not really connecting with it.
Well, you don't have to go through the whole.
Well, I know, but she's really frustrated, and she has this. Her husband is there, and she has this young daughter, and the daughter. It's like her birthday, this whole thing. But her daughter is really young, and the pilot, her basically her mentor is kind of like a grandmother figure to her daughter. And her daughter just wanders around the station. She's like a toddler, but she just goes wherever she wants to go. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
all right, very precocious. And she goes in and she finds the mentor, and was trying to talk to the robot, trying to get it to wake up, because basically her mom, she understands a little bit, like her mom and the robot aren't connecting somehow. And the mentor is like, she hasn't woken up yet, and so, as being a little kid, she just tries to talk to the robot how she would talk to a kid. And then we find out by the end of the episode that she actually connects to the Gundam. And that's kind of scary for her mom.
And I don't know if a lot of Gundam has this. I know there's a precedent in Gundam for just like Top Gun, just like, I mean,
Hot Shots.
the American military fiction that it's based on. I would say Top Gun has a big inspiration for Gundam, probably.
Yeah.
At least some phases of it. But it brings up that idea of you are destined for this somehow.
Yeah,
You're a
right.
little kid.
Mm-hmm.
And so the little kid can talk to the robot.
You're
The little
special.
kid was chosen for some reason.
Yes.
In this case, it's because whatever is in her body or her physiognomy, you know, it connects well with the system and she can use it without being damaged. But I think that's interesting that it's like, I don't think a lot of Gundam things use the giant robot trope of, we got to get a little kid in here.
No.
Put in the hands of the innocent child
Uh-huh.
the doomsday button and then see what happens.
Right. Well, I did.
Only the purest of intentions
Sure.
can wield this power.
Which I do think is a very interesting take on it. And I would be interested in watching more of The Witch from Mercury. I definitely want to watch more. The only other Gundam show that I've really watched is Gundam Wing. And that's, it's a bunch, like the main characters that pilot the Gundams and that there's a group of 5 young guys and they're teens. So it's kind of, it's kind of Evangelion-esque, except they don't get hurt.
We love this.
I wouldn't want to
I would
say
never not want to do this.
Right.
I'm going to call my mom, who is alive and loves me.
This is super cool. Look at how cool I am. And I'm not saying
I've
they
never
don't...
seen a penguin that can walk and talk.
Right. And right, exactly. Like it's not quite at the same level, but there is a lot of political stuff and political intrigue in that show as well. I think there's always a little bit of an element of that with Gundam.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and like government and like who gets
I would
to
argue
decide.
that is on sale just as much as
Yes.
The giant robots.
I think so too.
And that goes back to, you know, the Legend of the Galactic Heroes and all those classic old dusty animes that are about the exact same thing. Yeah, I think... I mean, that's a recommend for both of us.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I do think it is, like you were saying, really interesting. Like, she's super innocent. She has no idea that she's, like, piloting this. And I think the series, like, kind of, like, I don't know how much is going to take place of her being a toddler. I think it seems to flash forward pretty quick. But...
Yeah. Yeah, she's the heroine of the main series.
Right.
The little girl.
But we, you know, it's... I won't spoil the first episode, but there's a lot going on, and it looks... really interesting, and I'm excited that it's like a girl piloting it.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool.
It's funny that, you know, when you look at something like Macross, which, you know, was later turned into Robotech,
Right.
In America, and Harmony Gold, the company, and gosh, I can't remember the guy's name. Carl Masick, the guy who took Macross and then 2 other unrelated series and stuck them all together.
Right.
Rewrote the dialogue so that they were all connected.
Yeah.
In the story of Macross and the other 2 anime, there is this running thread, and this is the Western script of robotechnology, which is this special technology that allows the robot to operate, to transform into a plane or a tank or whatever it is.
Sure.
It's powered by this sort of unknowable science, which becomes the thread of the whole thing. Now, Carl Masick probably, I don't know his biography, probably served in Okinawa, or I'm sure he's very familiar with Japanese culture, but it's funny that a Western writer would take all that, what's all this stuff? Okay, and then write his own story that is unrelated to the stories. Macross and Robotech, the first chapter is very similar, but like unrelated to the stories that are in those animes, and make it a thing about a piece of technology that is dangerous in the wrong hands.
Right.
That should we use this or not? You know, in later chapters, the people who created this technology show up and go, what are you doing with our technology? And now you need to use this technology to fight the people that created it. And that's like a weird, like, parallel to the kind of things that we see. Maybe that's just something that is a post-industrial age story that, you know, add that to the man versus nature, man versus man conflicts, you know, man versus, you know, what he has created in the we'll give it to you this time, Mary Shelley, post-Frankenstein world.
Right.
I just thought that was really fascinating that he can make such a Japanese thing while saying like, no, this is mine. I bought this now. I'm going to do whatever I want.
Right.
And just kind of makes it an anime.
Right. No, that is really interesting. Well, and I think there's always like some
Netflix
sort of...
will ruin it soon. Don't worry.
Oh, God. Don't say that. Live action Robotech. But like, I think there's always an element with the giant robots, just like with kaiju, right? That like they're not only are they big, there's some destruction.
Yeah.
Like surrounded with them. And so is it that it's destroying it that we're not sure, destroying things like the environment, towns, civilization? Is that why we're not sure if they should use it? Is it's unsafe to people? Is that why we're not sure? Or is it I don't know.
Or in the case of Evangelion, is it going to bring about the biblical apocalypse?
Right.
So maybe there's that.
Well, I just like with Evangelion, I don't know how like New Tokyo is still around, because like how can they is there just constantly constructing stuff because like I swear to
It's
God.
retractable.
I know.
Like a switchblade.
I know it is.
Or like a hood ornament.
Yeah, you're right. But the parts of it aren't. And there's always buildings getting destroyed.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think that those themes are definitely there in a lot of the you pilot it giant robot animes. What about you control it? You don't have to get in it. You can just tell it what to do.
Right.
And of course, Tetsujin 28 Go falls into that. Giant Robo falls into that. All the iterations of Giant Robo. I'm trying to think of other anime or cartoons. I guess we're stuck in anime for this episode, but like cartoons, movies where you just go, nah, you do it. And then something comes in and does it.
Huh.
Some of the kaiju movies are like that too. The little girls that tell Mothra what to do or.
Right. Well, that's true. I'm trying to think like you do it.
Our heroes, especially in modern Western genre entertainment, are about agency and about, taking care of it on your own.
They would just do it.
Yeah.
They wouldn't tell somebody else to do it.
Yeah. Or if you do, you're telling a Hulk who will then use his own limited discretion to decide what to smash.
Right. Yeah, I don't think that there is like a whole lot of that in the West.
Well, the one that we looked at for You Control It specifically was Gigantor.
Yes.
Or Tetsujin 28. Brought to you by Glico.
Yes.
Which I don't think they do this today, but they wrote it into the theme song.
I know, which was interesting.
He's going bang bang and boom boom and Glico.
Which I'm like, I remember watching that and I was like, why is Glico in
Remember,
this theme
kids,
song?
Tetsujin eats
Pocky.
Glico. Yeah.
Yeah.
They say specifically, crush them, servant of the devil. I don't know if that's just
so Gigantor is a servant of the devil?
a colloquial thing. You servant of the devil.
Yeah.
In Japan.
The theme song was really funny. I think unintentionally so. Yeah, because isn't Gigantor like good? Well, actually, we don't know
He's
from like
whatever he is.
From the first episode.
I don't know if we know if he. We'll talk about maybe Giant Robo later, but I don't know if he has a will of his own.
He might not. But they wake him up.
Yeah, and I don't know. I also don't know if viewers at the time thought about this or complained about this, but I have seen modern viewers comment on the violence and just the entire premise and milieu of the show.
Of Gigantor?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is that it opens with a death. The main character's father dies.
It's like kids.
Yep. As it starts off, our hero is at his father's bedside.
Yeah.
And he just says, "Oh, don't weep for me. I'm dead."
Yeah.
That's just it right away.
I know.
And
well, that was a lot.
Little Shotaro Kaneda is left alone in this world. Only he's not. Because, of course, he's got Professor Shigeshima and Inspector Otsuka to look after him.
Yes, who worked with his father closely.
If Kaneda sounds familiar, it's because Katsushiro Otomo, of course, loved this as a kid and was influenced by it and made his characters Kaneda and also his character Tetsuo, who's named, Iron Boy, named after Tetsujin himself, the Man of Iron. And Tetsujin 28, of course, is his name, and 28 was the number of Akira. He was the 28th experiment. So that's all intentional.
All connected.
Yes. On a future show, we'll talk about that.
All right. Sounds good.
But yeah, Shotaro learns that his father worked during the war on building basically Japan's version of, what are they called? Wunderwaffe, right?
Yeah.
The idea, especially in World War II, of a wonder weapon. The Nazis loved this. The only successful one was the V2, basically, which was not even that successful, but got us to the moon, Dr. von Braun. And so the Germans, wanted to create some kind of like killer app that could help solve the war for them. A giant tank or a giant howitzer that travels on rail cars. This is something that they, near the end of the war, were desperately trying to develop. And so in the world of this, if you want to look at it this way, the atomic bomb was a wonder weapon
thinking about that.
in a lot of ways. And
but
that's
I mean,
something
wonder weapon sounds like it's good PR, right?
Yeah.
Like it makes it sound like it's something great and something very awesome when it's like really terrifying.
Yeah. Who's getting the wonder here?
Yeah, right.
And that's something that Yokoyama said specifically that he was influenced by when he was creating this, and I would have to assume by extension Giant Robo as well.
Mm-hmm.
He was thinking about the Vergeltungswaffen weapons of the Germans, also the complete bombing, the flattening of Kobe, the city in which he grew up in, seeing the destruction by Allied bombers, and Frankenstein.
Interesting.
He specifically was using Frankenstein as a touch point here for creating this show. His father invented this robot along with Professor Shikishima, but it was not invented in time to make any difference in the war.
Yeah, and so they go to the lair and...
Yeah, they go to his lab, which
underground.
It's underground, but it's inside a mountain.
Yes.
On a mountaintop with a giant lightning rod attached. Very Frankenstein. Lightning is hitting it.
Yes.
And they show him these robots that they've made, specifically Tetsujin 28, the 28th robot, which they never really started up, but they have a radio control that can control it. And so they are interrupted in their discovery of this by the bad guys that show up.
Yes.
Bad guys can be funny, right? It's fun.
Well, in this they are, because there's like 4 or 5 of them, and like the last guy is
they're like
a short little guy.
They're like the Beagle Boys.
Yeah,
from Uncle Scrooge.
Right.
The PX Group, who is a worldwide criminal organization who is also looking for some way to get into this, and so they show up, get into a pitched gun battle.
Yeah.
For a child's cartoon.
It's okay. I get the violence objection.
And 28 is activated, but 27 is also activated as well. So we have a giant robot fight right away. 28's kind of on his own. He defends himself and destroys 27, but the bad guys get a hold of the controller for 28.
And
are going to do bad things with him.
Yeah, it seems like really, really bad.
Yeah.
So
there's also another bad guy.
Yeah.
Kuronuma. He's the KKK baghead guy.
Thank you.
Yes.
Because I was like, this guy has a bag head and it's like a white, and I was like, this might not
wait for
mean...
Giant Robo. You're like, one baghead guy?
I know.
What about everybody's got a bag on their head?
I know. And I was like, this might not mean something if you were born and raised in Japan, but I just immediately thought of the KKK, and I was like, I know this is a cartoon, but it's like a bag head, but it's like, it's a cartoon and it's weird. So you're like, is he literally wearing a bag on his head, or is that just his face? I don't know.
He's got a bag, but no, it's a Baron Zemo situation.
Right.
So, Gigantor, we'll just call him. Gigantor breaks out of the lab and heads for Tokyo, because of course he does.
Yeah.
And
like Godzilla.
Weirdly enough, there are a lot of characters in this and a lot of antagonists. I guess they're setting up for the future show. But Kuronuma hooks up with the PX gang, which he was not a part of initially.
Yeah.
But now they're all going to work together. The professor and Kaneda rush back to Tokyo, and the professor is going to build the controller that will help them control Gigantor. But things go wrong, and the PX gang gets their hands on the controller.
Yeah.
Bad news. But all points bulletin for license plate E1234.
What?
They're borrowing things from like other cop shows and things like that.
Oh, okay.
Obviously.
I
So
didn't
there's
catch
these
that.
weirdly specific things. It's like, I think you could just follow the giant robot crushing Tokyo.
Yeah,
But it's like,
I
you gotta
think so
track
too.
this license plate. We meet the Murasume brothers, who are
Okay.
a completely random gang of zoot-suited criminals who are going to rob a bank. But in the midst of they're just, look, I'm just innocently robbing a bank. But Gigantor busts in and kills the eldest brother of the gang. And so they vow revenge
On the robot.
Gigantor.
Yeah.
So
I mean-
all of these forces, and one of the characters is like, Jesus, we got to get out of here. I'm like, whoa, what?
I'm like, why are we saying Jesus?
Yeah, was that a translator thing?
Yeah, it
What's
might
the
have been.
Japanese, analog of saying Jesus?
That's a really good question. That
Kami.
I do not. Kami-sama.
There is a comical car chase that's almost Looney Tunes-esque in the way the cars are barreling around the road and like
Yes.
deforming on it when they go around turns and things like that.
Yes.
Very
Somehow
animated.
staying on the road,
Animated,
twisting and turning.
animation style here.
Mm-hmm.
And all of this ends up on a cliffside beach where the police have shown up. They're in a pitch battle with the PX gang. The PX gang is trying to get the robot, on their side because they've got the controller, but they're trying to work it out still. And the bumbling police officer does one thing right, which is he shoots the controller out of the hands of the main bad guy.
Yes.
And so now, once again, Gigantor is sort of like up to his own devices. And the Murasame gang shows up. They're pissed off about their dead brother. They throw dynamite at Gigantor, which explodes the cliff that he's on, and he plummets into the water. And if that was the end, that would be a very Frankenstein ending, wouldn't it?
It would.
He's in the windmill. The windmill's on fire.
Yes.
And we don't know really what happens
That's
to
so
Frankenstein
I
until the
know.
sequel.
Until the sequel. Yes.
Yeah, and so it's like he is scary. He's a destructive force. Now, this is an ongoing show. At some point, the kid gets the controller, and we've got like a hero thing going on.
Right.
But at this point, it's like this guy's just pure chaos.
That's
And
what
he
you get.
begins chained to a thing, and he
Yes. Electricity and he
rips
breaks
the
free.
chains. He rips his shackles out. It's very Frankenstein.
It is very Frankenstein and this chaos too. And like also they mentioned before that they never basically tested Tetsugen 28 or like had powered him up, what have you. So it also very Frankenstein. You could think of a new being doesn't necessarily understand what's going on or what's happening.
Bullets bad.
Yeah, right.
Although he doesn't really seem to care about bullets.
No, he just we don't really know what his deal is.
He's
yet.
an Iron Man.
Yeah, he is an Iron Man.
Yeah.
That's right. He is made of iron.
Nobody likes him.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. I
was thinking, just let me finish this quick.
Yeah,
I was
ahead.
thinking that, because we forgot to mention this before, there is a lot of, we didn't talk about the Big O at all for piloting things.
no, we should talk about the Big O.
But the Big O is piloted by Roger Smith.
Yes,
But
the negotiator.
Yes, but I think you get the implication that something more is going on. And there are characters within the Big O who are artificial intelligence themselves.
Yes.
And the things that he fights are generally, man-made robots or creatures.
Yes.
Who are doing something, but maybe just following their own instincts. And so you get the idea of, we are defending ourselves, but maybe we're not killing something like the PX gang. They're just evil. Big Fire,
Right.
they're just evil.
Right.
And so maybe we are fighting things that can't necessarily help themselves in what they do.
Right. Right. I think that's a really, really valid point. I also wanted. I don't know. It's hard because like I didn't feel like I got a huge sense of. We only watched one episode.
Yeah, we didn't
so
watch the whole thing.
it's hard because I don't really get a huge sense of Gigantor, but it is interesting that I don't know why you start the cartoon off with the kid's dad dying, and that's the first scene. You know, you could.
Look, Cutie Honey starts the same way. Like,
That's true.
A lot of Go Nagai stuff starts the same way.
That is true.
Mazinger Z basically started the same way.
Yeah. I mean, but it's interesting that we started off and we know, knowing what we know about the cartoon, that the kid and the robot are going to have some sort of connection. But in the beginning, that does not exist at all.
Yeah, you got to build it.
Yeah.
You got to build it up.
Yeah, that's right.
Unlike something like Giant Robo, specifically the Giant Robo 1992 series of OVAs,
Yes.
where we just start this thing up.
Yeah, we just started off.
This kid's got
and
a Giant Robo.
He already has it. He's already saving people with Giant Robo. He's already hanging off of the side of his face. So, you know.
The original Giant Robo manga from the 60s had, you know, a character. He's Johnny Sacco, you know, in the English version. And the Big Fire, the organization, is from space. Mm-hmm. Giant Robo himself actually has a connection to space as well, I think. And so he's controlled by the kid. But in the OVAs, the director of the OVAs, for whatever reason, some legal reason, was not allowed to use many of the characters.
Is that right?
From the original Giant Robo.
That's so strange. Well, and I think it's interesting too in the OVA, like, it's supposed to take place in China. Is that right?
Well, it takes place all over the world.
Oh, okay, but I feel like we start off in China.
So like Daisaku is the kid is like
Yes.
the only thing that he's really allowed to use. And so for that reason, he actually went back, and I don't know why this was okay, to Yokoyama's other manga series.
Oh.
So that's why it is a weird combination of like super technology, superhero stuff, other mecha stuff, wuxia characters.
Yes.
It's like this bouillabaisse of like manga elements.
That's very
It's like
fascinating.
kung fu, superhero, robots, steampunk, all these different things
That's
together.
really cool because I don't know what it is. Like, you know, you can add a whole bunch of different elements to something and it doesn't necessarily always work, but that works. Like the OVA, like only saw the very first episode of that, but it's very good. I was very entertained by it. It's got a lot of characters in it and they're all very different from each other. And I think that they're really, you know, there's full life there. You don't necessarily know them super well in the very first episode, but you can tell that they're, you know, I'm not just a single trope, you know?
Yeah.
And it's interesting too because the kid, what is his name again?
Daisuke.
Daisuke. He, like, there are other characters in it who are adults who are jealous of him because he's got this big robot and like everybody thinks he's so cool because he comes and saves the day. And it's like, and then other adults have to be like, he's a kid. He's like, I don't remember if he's like 12 or 14 or something like that, but it's something like that. And he's like, think of all that responsibility. And I don't know if we would have been able to handle it at that age. It's just interesting, like a giant robot anime actually drawing attention to that.
And
you know?
it's a little, I mean, Giant Robo was a little more sophisticated than Tetsujin, but it's even more sophisticated in the sort of new era, you know, new wave of anime in the 90s, where presumably Giant Robo is a kid and his robot, you know, just fight the bad guys every week and they win and that's fine. But this is like immediately taking the kid and the robot and saying, there's a kid with a robot, but like, what does that mean?
Right.
And it's kind of presaging in a lot of ways what we get with Evangelion, you know, with things like Gurren Lagann later on, which is like, it's tough to do a robot. And it's not all about the kid being the robot star of the show and being the robot. The kid is like this weird anomaly. And then you've got this other cast of like characters with X-Men powers who all work for like S.H.I.E.L.D. and they're doing other things in this world.
Right. And then there are also scientists who create things and we're not really sure what's going on with them. And people are after them. And it's very interesting. And they did there was like one of the characters like had like a robot. It looked like they were a robot in like the very beginning, and then it like that was just like a disguise or something like that. So that was really cool too.
I don't remember that.
Right? Like the when they were fighting on the train, and the young woman who wears the Chinese dresses most of the time and does like martial arts and stuff like that. There was like a character that shows up, and they had like a robot head or a robot face or something like that, right? Didn't she?
I don't remember.
I don't remember. I swear I'm not making this up. She had some sort of disguise, and it was cool. It was a cool reveal.
Oh, she was. She was like. Yeah, she looked different, and then she did a 2 weeks Total Recall thing.
Yeah,
I don't know if she's a robot.
Okay, maybe not, but it was cool. I want to just mention too that like Castle in the Sky Ghibli film, there are robots in that, and like it's when they go to the castle in the sky, there is like there's all these robots that are there, but there's like one that's like the only one active, and there was one, so they're programmed. We don't know who designed them or put them together, but they're programmed to protect the Laputa royal family wherever they may be, and this is a castle that some people don't believe it exists, but it does. But the kids go there, and like there's one that's like kind of like gardening and like interacting with animals and nature and stuff like that. But then there's like this other guy who is also part of the Laputa family, but he has nefarious goals and that sort of thing, and he gets control. There's like crystals that control them, or can kind of control them, and he gets control of them and like uses them for military purposes and stuff like that. So bad. So
the animation style of the OVAs of Giant Robo were, based on Yokohama's original work, and a lot of people that worked on Giant Robo, the OVAs, went on to work on the Big O. So that's why there's a lot of similarity in the animation. Very
interesting. Well, and it's I like the style.
Yeah, me too. I think that it's especially in Giant Robo, like it's we're all living in the shadow of Lupin, but it kind of goes past that. Like it's got a little flair, and it interestingly has a super spy guy, Chinese drunken master guy.
Yes.
It fits all those things in really well. And then of course you got King Tut Robot.
Yes.
We've talked about the robots you can control. Now we talk about the robots that you can't control.
Yes.
And, unless if they're still going to be somewhat heroic, maybe that narrows it down, because there's plenty of like runaway robots that you just have to, destroy.
Sure.
I was trying to think of like Marvel Comics, something like Ultimo or something like that. But really, like in the West, we think about the Iron Giant.
Yes, we do.
Put a gun to Brad Bird's head and say, "Don't lie to me." Giant Robo, right?
I mean,
this is Giant Robo.
It essentially
you
is.
made Warner Brothers' Giant Robo.
Yeah. I mean, he's from outer space. And there's a little kid, and
not to ruin how Giant Robo ends, but it ends a lot like the Iron Giant.
Well, and basically the kid finds him and tries to communicate with him, and tries, but it's scary at first because you don't know what is this thing, and it's just like he goes out and discovers that it's eaten the antenna of the giant robot. The Iron Giant has eaten the antenna for his TV, and that's how he gets involved. But the Iron Giant eats metal, but the kid, Hogarth, he basically saves him, because he goes and he's attacking or trying to eat what do you call like the electricity
I don't know
things.
Power lines?
Well, it's not a power. It's like a power where it all is housed.
It's the power plant.
Yeah, it's like a power plant. He's attacking that, and he's getting electrocuted. So he turns the big off switch, and they kind of become friends. And he's like trying to teach him how to speak and stuff like that.
Is Terminator a giant robot?
I don't think so.
Yes. Huge.
Well, I mean, is 6 feet a giant robot? I mean, he's definitely a robot.
I mean, more than 6 feet.
Oh, okay. All right. But what constitutes a giant robot?
I don't know, but what constitutes having a little kid to be like, oh, this is my robot? Did you call moi a dipshit?
Yeah, right.
Now, he's got the benefit of having done this in 1991, but also we know that James Cameron likes anime, and
That's true.
he must have had a TV in his truck when he was a trucker, getting all these good ideas for, or just reading Harlan Ellison novels in the cab at night. Ooh. He can't get us anymore.
Oh my God.
Unless he gets angels to start sending summons out.
Was he mad about the Terminator?
He's mad about everything. He's Harlan Ellison.
I know.
But yeah, he sued.
Okay. Did it go anywhere?
Yeah, he won.
He won.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So now it has to say
Inspired.
based on ideas by Harlan Ellison.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, anyway, great. The Iron Giant. Let's talk.
Yes.
I don't love it.
Why don't you love it?
I don't love it because it was been done better in so many other places. And Brad Bird, you know, the Incredibles aside, I just is not. I don't think he's had a lot of success. Something about that guy. I don't know if I really like him. Warner Brothers animation, you know, unless it's Looney Tunes, generally not great.
It's
and
not
also,
great.
man, they went hard into the CGI. I know it's only 1999. Other people are doing it, but they really just went, we don't have what Disney has in terms of animation, so let's just CGI is the new thing. So it's just really CGI, and I wonder how good it could have been if it was more hand-drawn.
I feel like...
And also, it's just like, could you do this without Superman? Why not?
No, they couldn't.
Right.
Short answer, no.
And I know it's their IP,
Yeah.
but it's just, you're just making like essentially a Superman side story out of your kid's animated movie, which is for kids. A lot of adult humor in this movie for kids.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I just hate it when the jokes aren't funny. Like, just a lot of jokes that just are like, it's got the cadence of a joke, but it's just not all that funny.
It's not that funny. Yeah.
But-
There's a lot of that.
I'm wrong because the entire generation that came after me all grew up watching this, and so it's the greatest movie anybody's ever seen.
I did not grow up watching this. I actually don't know if I've ever seen it until recently.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he like shows the Iron Giant like Superman, and like that's just a huge part of it, which is just I was kind of surprised how much a big part of it was.
Yeah.
It's just like it is like you're right. I mean, it is essentially like a Superman story. Like you are like Superman.
Sonic the Hedgehog, who's owned by Sony, I think, right? We make the parallel with the Flash. He likes the Flash because of the similarities, but he's not asking himself what the Flash would do necessarily. And at the end of the movie, he's not like, come on, Eggman, I'm the Flash.
No.
It does bring in the interesting question that you have to get, which is, I was made to be a weapon. This is the Terminator thing, which did it 8 years before Brad Bird. It's that all I can do. And the movie, because it's for kids, really hits you over the head with the idea of you can do whatever you want to do, whatever you choose to do, whatever Ayn Rand says that you can do.
Wow. I know that's there.
It's a little pet theory of mine.
I know. I think it's, generally speaking, I think it's a sweet movie. Do I think it's something we've never seen before? Not really. I mean,
could use a B story.
It could use a the B story is
I'm an artist who makes weird art.
Yeah. And then and mom is a single mom, so clearly these two are gonna get together by the end of the movie. Yeah. Which I thought
it's like they heard 50s and they're like Sputnik,
Greaser.
Obviously.
Yeah.
And then beatnik artists.
And 50s diner and like
and
Greaser
then like
guy.
Right. And the 50s military, we just got done killing giant ants. Now it's time to kill a giant robot. Yeah.
Right. Which, I mean, I get, and like atomic power, which was huge. So that was interesting. But I also like the Dean, the greaser artist guy who runs the dump. Like the way that he meets Hogarth's mom at the beginning, it's like they are meeting for the very first time, where it seems like he lives in this town and he's lived here for a while, and like he runs the dump, like judging by all of his.
What business does she have at the dump?
Nothing. But like, you're trying to tell me that he's never gone to like one of the only restaurants in town?
Yeah, probably.
And so I just find it hard to believe that this is a meet cute
I'm
for
just
the
taken out
first
of
time. Yeah, I was totally taking. No, I'm just kidding. But it was a little weird. But I think it's fun that like this is a kid where we established very early on has wanted a pet, and it's kind of weird because like, is a giant robot like a pet? He's his own person. He's not a pet. But it's kind of weird that it's that kind of parallel, I feel like, is drawn there, because he wants somebody he can connect to and that sort of thing. But he knows that that the Iron Giant makes his own decisions.
Yeah, but he's somebody who needs to be, I don't know, I guess. I feel like there's a lot of examples of guys that, somebody loses their memory, or somebody who was born weapon yesterday.
Yes.
And then has to decide, whether they're going to be good or bad. And it's, and then Kevin Costner talks him out of it. I have this weird theory that like post 1978, because Richard Donner is a very nice man who hates fur. Mm-hmm. Almost every Superman story has been a story of objectivism, which is, I know that. Ayn Rand would probably wish that she had a time machine so she could give Nietzsche the fuck of his life.
Oh my God.
And Nietzsche, who may have never had a fuck in his life, would be like, get away from me, you skank.
Oh my God.
In truth. But that is the question of the Superman, isn't it? Why should I help you? I'm Superman. And the original novel that Superman is really sort of based on, The Gladiator by Philip Wiley, is a question of that. It's a character who has all these abilities for whatever reason and is going to use them to help himself, and questions whether he should help others. And he meets kind of a tragic end, and it isn't necessarily a moralizing thing. It's just, this man can't exist in this world. And two Jewish guys from Cleveland or wherever they're from, you went, well, what if he's, in the tradition of modern comic heroes, it's just like, no, I'm going to help people. It's fine.
Right.
And then that has been re-examined over and over and over through the 80 years of the character's history. And it always comes down to, this guy's going to help people.
Yes.
To everyone according to their gifts, right?
Uh-huh.
He has all these gifts, and so he is going to selflessly help people. Sure, the cost to him is very limited because he doesn't need to eat or sleep or breathe, pre-crisis. Nothing's going to hurt him, except that darn Lois wants to know his secret identity. And it isn't until recently, until modern times.
Thanks, Zack Snyder.
Well, it's not just Zack Snyder. I have a couple theories about Bryan Singer myself, but everybody who's made a Superman thing, other than Bruce Timm, is like, I don't know, maybe you don't deserve my help. We'll see.
Don't like.
We'll see.
Which I don't like at all.
And we'll see what James Gunn decides to do with the character. A modern golem, if you will. A creature who was, from somewhere else, but has decided to be one of us. And so we're ruining another show again.
Well, and I just always figured that he did the right thing because that's how the Kents raised him.
That is how the Kents raised him, but we see that process in miniature with the Iron Giant, because he has to learn that from a little kid in the course of a couple days,
and
instead of growing up
right.
with good American values in Kansas.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it works, I guess, as far as that goes.
Yeah. And he has a friendship with Hogarth and Dean, and it's really sweet. But it's fine. It is
fine.
Yeah.
It is merely fine. But for a movie that literally can't exist without another movie, I don't.
I know.
I don't. Why couldn't it be Batman? What if the Iron Giant is like crouched on top of a house? He crushes
a very
it.
different movie.
The kid's like, why don't you read this instead?
Yeah.
Superman.
Right.
If we move on from not having any control,
Yes.
Frankenstein, the Iron Giant, what about combiners?
Mm-hmm.
What about robots? And maybe this is just you pilot it, subcategory of that, but the combiners of the world.
Yes.
I don't know what the first combine the robots thing would be. There's a manga, or I think, it was a manga by Go Nagai. And at the same time, it was an anime television series called Getter Robo.
Oh, okay.
Which is about like a family of people who, maybe like a Japanese Thunderbirds, sort of. The Thunderbird, there you go. Jerry Anderson really blew it. If the Thunderbirds could have merged together to become a super Thunderbird, Thunderbird Zero, and then punch, the vaguely ethnic bad guys into space.
Oh my God.
Then but miniature technology, we weren't there then. Puppets hadn't advanced to the point where you could form puppets together.
Yes.
But it's sort of like that. And that, of course, gave rise to, your Voltrons or your Beast Go Lion in Japan.
Right.
And so on and so forth.
With our powers combined. Yeah.
Teenagers with attitude.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I was just, no, that's not robots at all. I was thinking of Power Rangers adjacent, maybe Captain Planet, like with our powers combined. But no, it's not. No. They have magical rings and they, work with a superhero. I never really got into Power Rangers, but one of my sisters was like super into it.
The train's still at the station.
I know.
That's not. I
know. But I mean, if it's as good as Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon,
is it just robots by dint of the costumes? It's really just a kung fu show, right?
Yeah.
Or tokusatsu.
It is tokusatsu.
And so, by a long-ish road, like, Kamen Rider is gonna jump up and Kamen Ride it into the giant. He's got a common robot, doesn't he? Does something. I don't know. He gets up in the thing.
I think so.
At some point, you're going to find something big.
Yes.
And to do that, either you've got to get big, like Ultraman, who is an alien, or you got to get a giant robot.
Yes.
Spider-Man had a giant robot, right?
Sure.
Leopardon.
Yes.
So at some point, it's like we include these because they are literally robots, but we're not examining the idea of either artificial intelligence or man's complicated relationship with technology.
Right. No, this is just, we have several smaller robots and we're combining to make a larger one.
But
I mean, is this
it's a popular thing.
Is this for toys?
Because
is that what that is?
Voltron was big and it could only last for so long, I guess, in the West. And even there's been a couple different, ideas like this in other Japanese anime. But it isn't until whatever that spark was of the Power Rangers that it has just, continued to explode on both sides of the Pacific.
But do you think it is to sell toys? Is that like...
Well, it's all to sell toys.
Yeah, well, that's true.
It's probably a Sally the Witch doll.
Oh, I'm sure that there
casts a spell on you.
But I mean, it's like now if you want to make the giant robot, you got to get 5 different toys, because it's like one is an arm and the other is the other arm.
Look, G.I. Joes didn't merge together to form a...
That's true.
The Uber G.I. Joe. It's like a Clive Barker story.
Right.
But I wanted all the G.I. Joes.
Mm-hmm. Right. No, I totally get that. I think it just makes it more powerful, right? And it's like scarier and it's like...
But plus it also elevates the conflict.
Yes.
So you've got something going on in high school. I don't know what Bulk and Skull are up to. This is my last interaction with Power Rangers 30 years ago. Then the putties show up, and so we're in a kung fu. But then the giant monster shows up, and so we got to go Megazord. And so it gives you like acts of action that match the acts of the story. It's smart.
It is smart. And it reminds me too of like especially in the live action Sailor Moon, but in the anime too, like we're gonna use all of our powers combined to fight the bad guy because whatever we're doing individually isn't working.
Yeah.
You know, it's a major attack.
It is a major attack.
Mm-hmm.
What about things that transform? Our last
Robots
category.
in disguise.
Yes.
I think that Transformers is something that's really cool. It's always been really cool.
But Transformers aren't the only Transformers.
Oh, tell
Are
me
they?
more. I don't know.
No, I'm asking you.
I don't know the answer to that. I know about Transformers. I don't know if I know about any other robots that transform.
Are combiners Transformers? Kind of. Some of these overlap.
Kind of.
Some of these overlap because
they transform into a giant
Robotech
robo.
stuff transforms.
Okay.
I don't know if any Gundams transform.
Maybe. I don't know.
I love how you
don't
think
know.
like you. I know you don't know.
I know. There's so many. I thought about it for a second, then I was like, no, I don't know.
So maybe we've been boiling down from The Witch from Mercury, a really moving exploration of man's inhumanity to man, to, hey kids, Transformers, buy them.
Right.
But it's literally just, how does it help Optimus Prime to become a truck?
Right.
Oh, we got to move this Energon across the country. Well, let's roll out.
Right.
I mean, that really is just about giving a kid something he likes, which is playing with a truck and playing with a robot, and he can do it at the same time.
Right. Well, and then, like, you could say, if you wanted to tie it back to the story, like, maybe, they need to be disguised for a certain part of the mission so the bad guys don't attack.
Oh, that's what happened.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
When they crash landed on Earth.
Yeah.
The ARC computer, once the ship awoke, scanned the dominant life forms on the planet, which it mistook for cars because of course it didn't.
They were big.
What are these organic squealing things?
Yeah. Right.
It's from Cybertron.
Right.
And so it therefore gave the Autobots and the Decepticons, I guess, the ability to transform into trucks.
Trains, planes, and automobiles.
A gun.
Yeah, sure. Right.
This one will be a tiny little gun.
Yeah, right.
And then a VW Bug, the dominant life form on the planet.
It's cute.
As we know.
Fear the bug. The bug is life. I think that the toys are really cool. And I think that that's, that's a lot of it, right? But there are stories there too. Like, apparently robots can die. So that's sad.
Well, they're alive.
Yeah.
In their own way.
They are.
They have a spark.
They're not piloted. They're, they make their own decisions and have their own desires and that sort of thing. So yeah. Are there any female Transformers?
Yeah, RC.
RC? Is that
That's
it?
No.
Okay.
I think
it was the 80s.
I think in Beast Wars there's some female Transformers, but
okay.
Not really.
Not really, yeah.
Which just goes to show, and I'm sure, yes, there is a long history of comic storylines and like sort of beta canon storylines where I'm sure that they've explored this all the way down. Netflix has created a couple different series that have been bad or maybe good, who knows. But it does at this point seem like cash register goes burr by itself. You just leave it sitting there. And I think it's interesting. And again, nothing comes to mind. I'm sure we could find something, but there aren't a lot of you can't like patent transforming. In fact,
I don't think so.
Transformers doesn't even have a patent on transforming. They got it from Across.
Right.
So it's weird how like one transforming anime led to another transforming anime / cartoon.
Yes.
And then that's
kind of it.
We don't talk about GoBots in this house. That's pretty much it. And you'd think that like, oh, transforming is really cool. Other things should transform.
Right.
But maybe there's no way to do transforming that isn't so clearly you kind of doing Transformers.
Yeah, I don't know.
If you sold ShamWows really well, there's no way to really sell a chamois without... Are we stepping on ShamWow guys' territory?
Yeah, right.
That's dangerous because that guy, he'll take a swing at you.
He's messed up.
There's no way to have a competing chamois product.
No. I mean, could you is there a way you could just morph? Like you're a robot and you just morph into something else.
Another robot.
And not do that,
Not bad.
okay. I am transforming and I do robotic motions to transform and this is what I can transform into.
They're owning it. They
Yeah.
stupidly transform into a train that can also transform into a space shuttle.
Uh-huh.
Nobody can take that from them.
Yeah.
Who would want to do that?
I know.
They're the only ones that do it.
Yeah.
They're just doing it on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And if you tried to do it, Optimus Prime would say, "Give me your face."
So as we wrap up here, Cal, what would you do with a giant robot?
How big are we talking?
Oh, big.
Or is it up to me?
Massive. As tall as a downtown building.
Whoa.
Very tall.
I think a giant robot that's as tall as a skyscraper is the word
Yes,
you're looking for.
thank you.
It's pretty tall.
Mm-hmm.
Would have there's not much that he can do. He can fight a monster that's as tall as, but if we're assuming in this world there's just a robot that's that tall,
Yes.
we have to start letting people live in him.
Oh.
You've basically created another building, right?
I
You've
guess
created
you're
a giant
right.
building
Ooh.
who apparently has thoughts and feelings and hopes,
Moves.
but must have a lot of empty space in him, right?
Oh my gosh.
And he's mobile.
Yeah.
So he would be great for, just for, letting homeless people have a place to live.
Sure.
Also, maybe in emergency situations, if a giant robot was around during Hurricane Katrina,
I see.
he just shows up at the dome and just reaches in, and everybody can get up inside of him. And then, assuming not stay away from the moving parts,
Right.
otherwise he's
Yeah.
going to be well lubricated.
Right.
Then he could take people to someplace safe. He weighs thousands of tons. He's not going to be blown over by a hurricane.
Huh.
So he can make his way through dangerous situations and then let people out.
That's really
Alternately,
cool.
he could save on rocket fuel by just throwing spaceships into orbit.
I like that. What would your giant robot's name be?
Oh, Rescutron.
Rescutron.
No, he's supposed to be a house. He's supposed to be a house.
Yeah.
You could live inside of him.
Well, that's kind of a rescue.
Resident Tron. Resident Tron.
Oh my god.
That's my Tron and Resident Evil mashup.
Oh my gosh.
Cyber zombies.
Well, I don't know. That's really cool. That's a lot of, I don't know what I would do. Maybe, I like the saving from natural disasters and the homelessness thing. So I thought that was all really great.
There's a transformer called Metroplex
Okay.
who
Sounds like a movie place. It's a
it
plex?
does.
Yeah.
He is a city
Oh.
who's a transformer.
Okay.
And I'm sure, again, in beta canon, I'm sure that there's a great Metroplex single issue comic, IDW comic or something, but they've never done anything with him because who cares, right?
Oh.
Well, I care, but you're just making a cartoon for kids who are going to play with the toys, so who cares? But the idea of your city not just being a living thing, but
Right.
literally a living sentient thing, and the relationship you have with them. This is like a Neil Gaiman story that never got written, right?
Right.
And so I think that'd be really fascinating. And you can get that with Residentotron or whatever I called him.
Nice. I like that.
What about you?
I'm kind of thinking so there's a lot of stuff that's really bad with our environment right now, and it's not getting better with climate change and everything. So what if there was a giant robot that could not only, give us fair warning that something is, we need to do something about, polar ice that's melting, or our, the amount of gasoline we're using or something like that, and people would actually listen to it, not only give warnings that people would actually listen to, but also help come up with alternate solutions. Like maybe, okay, the ice is going to melt, so this robot can do all sorts of things. Like it can go up to the poles and like ice cold breath and make it like ice again. Or there's fires happening, out west. Well, he'll just go and like shoot his like arms that have like water coming out of them on it and stuff like that.
Sure.
So he is just a giant protector of the earth.
Superman.
Right. But he's a robot, so it's kind of interesting. He's metal.
I like the environmental aspect of it. You've kind of like taken like Swamp Thing and made a robot out of him, which is like, that's the kind of irony that I can get behind.
Right.
Alan Moore says. A technological protector of the environment.
Yes.
Who is there to stop the disasters wrought by climate change, but he'll kick a bulldozer into space.
Yes.
He's also maybe there to avenge the environment as well.
Yes, exactly.
A pissed off Captain Planet, but not the Don Cheadle Funny or Die sketch that is not as funny as everybody thinks it is.
Yes, exactly. So I think that their name would be I want to put Tron at the end of it too. Gosh,
I think that's a trigger.
Environmentron or something like that. Envirotron. How about that?
Did anybody ever make a superhero called Environmental? And he's like, he's murdering loggers.
Oh my God, no!
Well, he's a 90s dark hero. He dated Harley Quinn for a while. And she's like, this guy, she's nuts.
She's like, where's the Joker again?
Yeah, right. Give him a call.
Oh my gosh. Well, next time on the show, what's coming up next, Cal?
We are going to talk about, go with me here.
Yes.
Because we're going to get weirder. You can't punch out on the weird with this one, because then you won't be around for the even weirder ones where you can go, well, that's it. We're going to be talking about a topic that we haven't covered yet, which is video games.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be talking about specifically a very pernicious and persistent trope in video games today. It's a trope that I like to call Mr. Protagonist.
All right. I'm listening.
Why is the protagonist of every video game a white guy with brown hair?
I don't know.
Who's probably voiced by Nolan North.
Right.
And even though that is a trope that points a finger at boring sameness,
yes,
we're going to find a way to talk about that in an interesting and varietal way.
Fascinating.
So get to play your Uncharted's. Get your Dooms and your... Oh, that guy doesn't have a face. Oh, there you go. No face as well. We're talking about the bland, faceless male protagonist on the next episode of Just Enough Trope.
All right. I'm looking forward to it because I feel like it's a trope. Like once you think about it, you realize that you've been seeing it for a really long time. Mm-hmm. It is everywhere.
For sure.
That's it for this week. We'll be back in 2 weeks for another episode. In the meantime, if you want more talk about pop culture and tropes, join us on our Discord. We've got a link in the show notes. It's free, and it's a gateway to a cornucopia of conversations about your favorite pop culture topics.
And we've got social media accounts as well on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just go to Just Enough Trope and follow us and say hello.
If you really like what you hear, why not consider becoming a patron of the show? Go to patreon.com/Just Enough Trope and become a patron producer today. Each month, we hold a patron producer poll where our patrons get to decide what we talk about on our producer shows. You're also helping each and every episode of Just Enough Trope to make it to release, and we can't do it without you. So sign up today at patreon.com/Just Enough Trope.
And if you're not a joiner, you wouldn't join a club that would have you as a member, you can go to ko-fi.com /Just Enough Trope. And that is a site where you can give us essentially a tip. You know, you don't want to sign up for a monthly thing. I understand that. But if you think we're doing a good job and you want to support the show, you can give us a little something in there. Buy us a coffee at ko-fi.com /Just Enough Trope.
From the Just Enough Trope studios, this is Mika for Cal signing off and saying keep the geek fires burning.